Our country's experience with COVID-19 has not only upended our own lives, but it has uncovered a stark reality and failing of our own society. The unacceptable disparities in health experienced by minority groups, especially African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans.
Right.
Many members of minority groups have a much greater risk of COVID-19, often because of the nature of the jobs that many of them have as essential workers in society. More importantly, when people of color get infected with SARS-CoV-2, they more likely will develop a severe consequence of the infection.
Yeah.
And this is because minorities in general have a greater incidence and prevalence of underlying comorbid medical conditions, including hypertension, chronic lung disease, diabetes, and obesity.
Okay, hold up. Hold up. You snow cone head motherfucker. So basically, only minority black people, he's just specifically talking about black people. He says Hispanics, whatever, but their target is black people. They want to put the target on the black people's back, right? So only black people got hypertension and diabetes and obesity and all that bullcrap you just stated, right? Meanwhile, in our community, we're on basketball courts all day long, right? But we're the ones that have all the comorbidities that you're talking about, right? You go to the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, when you go to those parks and the basketball courts, you see us on the basketball courts, right? Slam dunking. But you know more about the black community than us and the black community know about our own selves, though, right? Because you're sitting up there with your little tie on, reading from your freaking commands from your overhead, right? What you need to do, and people like you, especially, more specifically, those Democrat politicians, what y'all need to do is keep our names, our communities out of your freaking mouths. That's what y'all need to do. In case you didn't know, a lot of us in the black community are pretty tired of y'all always mentioning our community. You're never in it. You continuously mention communities that you're never in, you've never lived in. You don't even have friends that live there in our communities. But you know so much about our communities and claim that you give two shits about what goes on in our community. Y'all don't know a damn thing about what goes on in our communities. Not a damn thing. You want to know what goes on in our communities? Why don't you come pay us a visit with your little tie? Why don't you come to our communities? Come to the Bronx, Brooklyn, and see what goes on in our communities. But I guarantee you one thing, you won't see nobody on the floor withering in pain, choking from COVID. I promise you that. Y'all don't know this. Y'all don't know the half of what goes on in our communities.
That lead to a multifold increase in hospitalizations and deaths from COVID-19 compared with the general population. Now, very few of these comorbidities have racial determinants. Almost relate to the social determinants of health, dating back to disadvantageous conditions that some people of color find themselves in from birth, regarding the availability of an adequate diet, access to health care, and the undeniable effects of racism in our society. Let us promise ourselves that our corporate memory of this tragic reality, that an infectious disease disparately hospitalizes and kills people of color, does not fade after we return to some form of normality. Righting this wrong will take a decades-long commitment. I strongly urge you to be part of that commitment. Which brings me to my next point of discussion: public service and social responsibility. I believe sincerely that regardless of our career paths, we cannot look the other way from pressing societal issues. Here in our own country, pockets of our society are undermined by poverty, drug abuse, violence, health disparities, inadequate education, racism, and often despair.
Yeah, you noticed, right? You noticed. And do you want to know what's the cause of all of that? Democrats. Democrat policies and blue states. Everything you just mentioned, Mr. Fauci, is from Democrat policies. And of course, your little foreign, interference in our policies in our own country. The worst thing to happen to any city or America in general are Democrats. Literally, the worst thing that a city can have in power is a Democrat in their city. Everything wrong in America is because of Democrats. You want to know what affects the black community the most? Because you obviously don't, but I'm here to tell you. You know what affects the black community the most? Yeah, Democrats. Yeah, they're the worst thing to happen to America. But more specifically, the black community, black people in general, the party of segregation, the party of racism, right? The party of slavery. Never in history has a Democrat voted against slavery. But you voted for it, and you empowered forces to enforce it, right? Behind the KKK, created the KKK, right? To force the black people out of the Republican Party and try to force them into the Democratic Party to keep you in power, right? But y'all know that black vote is gone now. And now you got tens of thousands of illegal immigrants pouring into our country. And you're trying to give them immediate citizenship so you can get your numbers back. So you can get some new Democrat votes, right? Because the election machines and all that is being fixed, being looked into and everything. The worst thing to happen in our community and what affects us the most are people like you. Democrat politicians. You're number one. You're the number one poison in the black community. Number two are black Democrat people in our community. Number one is the Democrat politicians. Number two, the number two problem in the black community are black Democrats. That's number two. That's the number two issue in our community. Other than that, we don't have all these problems you're talking about on here in our community. You don't hear black people out here talking about anything about what you're talking about is happening in our communities. Because we know what's going on in our communities. Oh, we're dying at higher proportionate rates because of COVID. You're full of shit. We're still outside playing basketball. I don't play it, but you get my drift, right? People listening to this cockamamie bullshit. All these people do is put targets on black community and the black community or black community on black people's backs under the guise of trying to help. That's what they're good at. These people are geniuses when it comes to hiding their agendas under the guise of we're just trying to help. What you need to do is get on here and talk about yourself or your Democrat politicians. You can just keep our community out of your mouths, bro. Unless you're ready to come out here with that mouth, just keep our community out of your mouth. Because I can guarantee you would never show up in the Bronx or Brooklyn, any one of our communities. You people talk so much crap about black community this, minority this, but you're never out here. You're never in our communities. Y'all know what happened. You know nobody in our communities like you people. You guys can only sit behind teleprompters and your little letters that you read into your little recordings because you can't even come outside the way you want to. You people can't even walk the street the way you want to. Unless you have like 8 or 9 Suburbans surrounding you, following you everywhere you go. So there's 2 things I would appreciate. I hope this message gets out there. 2 things I would appreciate. The number one thing I would appreciate as someone in the black community, and I've always been in the black community my entire life. Okay? What people need to do is listen to people in the black community that is from the black community and of the black community. Listen to people like this. It's what makes you look like you have a mental illness when you try to talk this shit in your black community. If you're wondering why you look like a weirdo in your black community, it's because you watch shit like this, people like this, and you regurgitate this freaking propaganda in your neighborhood. People look at you like, yo, this guy, the fuck is he even talking about? So if you're getting that, black people in the black community, if you're getting like, what is this guy talking about? Then you might want to watch something else. You might want to get off of CNN, MSNBC, all that, New York Times, all that propaganda, Marxist bullcrap. Now, number one thing that I would appreciate is if you people keep our communities out of your mouth. Unless you're willing to come out here and preach it in our community. Because you know the cameras are going to follow you. And what you're saying, what you're spitting out of your mouth, and what the cameras see are going to be 2 complete different things. So continue to hide in your little offices, in your little basements with your little teleprompters, because you'll never come out here in our communities. But somehow you have so much to say about it. So I appreciate someone from the black community would appreciate if you would just keep our communities out of your mouths. Because you're not doing a damn thing to fix anything in our communities. Now, on to number 2. What I would appreciate is black people in the black community that's sick and tired of this propaganda bullshit that these people keep spitting out of their mouth will take this message and send it to the next Democrat politician talking the same bullshit rhetoric out of their mouths. I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that more than anything. And if you look through my history on any videos I do, they're random, sometimes games, whatever the case may be. But one thing I don't do, as you see right now, I don't ask for anything. But right now, this rhetoric is becoming so toxic in our communities, and as black people, weak-minded, slave-minded, still living in those shackles that listen to this shit and eat it up and believe this, and then putting fear in our community. So I'd appreciate the second thing, of course, is if people in the black community see this and tell the next one of these people to keep our community out of their mouths. Because the black community is not speaking up on this, and it's sickening. It's sickening. This is going to keep going on. They're going to keep painting the black community's backs with different kinds of targets every other day, every other week, every other month. One day they're showing a video of a random Asian person with a planted camera, with someone planted there, and then have somebody attack the Asian person with a convenient camera recording at that time to attack the person. Right? How about the random cameras of black people getting attacked? When it comes to these people, you would think that no black people get attacked ever in the street. Only by police. Yeah, black people only can get attacked by the police. Nobody attacks black people. Right? If you listen to these people make you think that police are just running around the street killing black people everywhere. That's what they'll make you think. You go outside looking around and you just run from a cop car for no reason. They're not even looking at you. You start going the other way because you don't even want police to even see you walking in the street. That's what they do in our community. Put that in our heads. You got black people turning around because police are walking in a direction. So you got black people making a quick left or a quick turn down this way because they don't want to walk past the police. Because you got Democrat politicians saying if you walk by those police, they're going to grab you, they're going to put a knee on your neck, and they're going to shoot you in the back. So I appreciate it, people in the black community, if you would tell these politicians to keep our communities out of their mouths. This has to continue. We have to continuously tell them everywhere we go, keep our community out of your mouth. You are not of us. You are not from us. You are not a part of us in any shape, form, or fashion. We do not approve of your message. We don't. That's what we have to do. You got Black Lives Matter over there with these movements. You got Antifa over there with these movements. We need a we do not approve of your message movement to these politicians speaking on our community. This guy has never seen Fordham Road a day in his life. That's pathetic. And this is how serious it is. You listen to these people. We just need to speak up on this whenever we hear it. So black people in the community that feels the same, you got to see what these people are doing. And we got to call it out when we see it. You got to tell them, keep our community out of your mouth. That's what we got to do. Peace and love, people. That's just my take on his little comments that he makes about the black community and all this bullcrap he's talking about with all this black people dying more because of this COVID that he freaking has a patent on with his name on it. Yeah, we know about you, Fauci. So, black people in the black community that thinks for themselves, a brain that thinks for themselves. Call this out when you see it. All right? Peace and love, people.